This time of year, everyone talks about going dry. But at Athletic Brewing Company, we're skipping that because we prefer going athletic, which isn't dry at all. From crisp Goldens to hoppy IPAs and limited releases in between, you'll find something that fits your style. Every single non-alcoholic brew is packed with flavor and the same craft experience you love. So yeah, you could call it dry, but there's really nothing dry about it. Find your new favorite near beer at athleticbrewing.com. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast with Stephen Topless.
Hello and welcome to the 1865 match report. Well, it wasn't pretty and it was a difficult watch at times, but Forest got the job done at West Ham, winning by 2-1. A massive victory which extends the gap between them and the bottom three to 7 points, with 21 games gone off the season. And Forest also got one over on their old manager Nuno, thanks to Morgan Gibbs-White's late penalty at the London Stadium. I'm Stephen Topless and I'm joined by Tom Newton, who was also there at the London Stadium last night. And Tom, just your reaction to that win and what it means for Forest moving forward.
Thankful for the win. We've obviously increased that gap from West Ham, but again, the performance was poor. I wasn't an advocate for Dyche in the first place, and I just want to get 35 points ASAP and really look at it at the back end of this season, going into the summer, and have a manager who's going to work well with these players and be progressive.
I don't think you're the only one who thinks that way, Tom. I know I said last night in our WhatsApp group that I was tempted to turn it off at half time. It was really not a brilliant watch at all. And it's, despite the result, which is great, and we're happy and relieved for the 3 points. Yeah, I think there's more questions to answer, and we'll get on to some of those in a bit. But let's go into the team news. So Sean Dyche made a couple of changes. In goal, Matt Sells returned, replacing the injured and embarrassed John Victor in the net. And we also had Callum Hudson-Odoi back in the starting 11 after an Achilles injury, which meant that Forest went with a 4-2-3-1 formation. Sells in goal, a back four of Nico Williams, Nikola Milenkovic, Murillo and Ola Aina. Nicholas Dominguez and Elliot Anderson continued at the base of the midfield. In front of them, we had Morgan Gibbs-White, Amari Hutchinson and Callum Hudson-Odoi, and Igor Jesus up top on his own. So not too many changes from Villa. I think it was the right call bringing Sells back in after what happened on the weekend. And Callum Hudson-Odoi, I know he's had his critics this season, but he's still one of our best players. And when he's on his game, he's very difficult to deal with. Going into the game, Forest were 4 points clear of West Ham in 17th place. West Ham were 18th. So a loss here would have been massive. It would have closed the gap between Forest and the relegation zone to 1 point. But actually, Tom, I thought Forest started the game in decent fashion. They looked to take it to West Ham, had more of the possession early on, and we're at least trying to get on the front foot in the opening stages.
It was a brighter start, and it had to be after that Villa debacle. Nico Williams had a fantastic effort where Areola tips it around the post. With Forest to start well, but then if they don't get any reward from it, they seem to let like West Ham or whoever they're playing back into it, and I thought that was a bit of a concern last night, especially in that first half after a relatively bright start from Forest.
Yeah, and it was a typical Forest performance in many ways, where we had a decent start, and then we allow West Ham a bit of something, and then from that, Forest concede a corner, and from that, concede the opening goal. Let's have a chat about that. It comes in from a corner in the 13th minute. Summerville crossed it in. Souček flicked it on, and it flies into the back of the net off Murillo's head. And given how well Forest had started and going close through Nico, like you say, when we went a goal down, I started to think, here we go again, because it felt like we were going to end up potentially 2-3-0 down the way our luck's going and the way that we've been playing the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I listened to a rival podcast the other day from an opposition point of view, and they were basically saying that West Ham have been relatively poor on set pieces, and again, it's a needless corner to concede, because Hutchinson only has to play it down the line. He messes about with it, gives away a needless corner. The put it in is not a great corner. It's a bit flat, isn't it? And Murillo, it's reminiscent to that one what Lansbury scored at Pride Park when we beat Derby. He just didn't see it until the last minute. Goes in, and yeah, you start fearing the worst, because the first goal yesterday was vital, and it was a matter of who got it. Might give them confidence going into the game, and sadly it wasn't us to get that first goal.
And it very quickly put Forest on the back foot, and you could see that West Ham were more confident just because they'd got that opening goal. And even though Matt Sells didn't have to make any outright saves, it did feel like the momentum was with West Ham at that point, and Forest were struggling to wrestle it back. And some of our play in attack, I thought, was really disjointed. We were struggling to hold on to the ball, struggling to put together fluent moves. I mean, there was one point in the first half where the ball gets pumped up to Igor Jesus, and he's there on his own with 7 West Ham players around him, and you're thinking, who's helping him out? Where's the structure here of our attacking play? Because there were points in that first half where it was non-existent. And when you're chasing a game, it didn't fill you with much confidence.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's time again. It's like, sit back and just banging long balls up to Jesus, and nobody's within 20 yards of them. The only person who had Forest connections nearest to Jesus last night in that instance was Nuno. And the technical area, it's just like, they just don't help themselves at the moment, and I'm sorry, but I'm not enjoying this style of play from Sean Dyche. I just think it's just so stopping like good players playing to the best of their ability, the likes of Anderson, Gibbs-White, etc.
Yeah, and I think with all the talk around this being the best group of players that Sean Dyche has ever worked with, and he's never had this kind of quality available to him before, which I think were all valid arguments. In the last couple of games in particular, I think the Man City game accepted, because we did play quite well there and we were unfortunate. But the last couple of games, you're thinking Everton, Fulham, in fact, both games against Everton, Wolves was a poor performance, really, and we just got over the line in that one because we had that bit more quality. And then here as well in this first half against West Ham, it does feel like after a good start under Dyche, we've progressed backwards and the team doesn't look like it's improving. Again, I don't want to take too much away from the fact that we won, but I think these are all valid concerns, because looking ahead to where we go in the second half of the season and beyond, it's made me question whether Dyche is the right option for us after this season, assuming that we do stay up.
First and foremost, he's steadied like a sinking ship under Ange. Having said that, for all of the bad baggage what Ange brought with him, we were creating chances. And now we're not creating many chances. I mean, to be honest, I mean, we had 2 shots on goal in the first half from Williams and Hudson-Odoi. One's hit the bar. I really safe, but we haven't peppered a really, really poor West Ham goal keeper, have we? In terms of their defence have been all over the place this season. And we haven't opened them up or anything like that. Under Dyche, the handbrake's well and firmly on. And you can see why he's not given many opportunities at better clubs, because at the end of the day, he's a firefighting manager. That's what it is.
Forest had a chance a couple of minutes before the break, and it was created by Callum Hudson-Odoi, where he cuts inside, as we know how well he can do. He had an effort at goal very similar to the one that Nico Williams had earlier in the first half. This one, though, went a little bit closer. It beat Areola, but crashed away off the crossbar and to safety. And had that one gone in before the break, that could have really shifted momentum in Forest's favour. As it was, it didn't go in and the chance was missed. And in the closing minutes of the first half, Forest again had a few crosses that they were putting into the box, but it wasn't anything to really threaten West Ham. I think Nuno would have been pleased with how his side dealt with what we had to offer in that first half. And at the break, it was West Ham 1, Nottingham Forest 0.
The 1865 Match Report.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Before the second half started, Tom, Forest made one change, and that was Delane Backwell coming on for Amari Hutchinson, one winger for another. I mean, how did you feel seeing that change made, and what were you hoping for from that second half from Forest?
I think Hutchinson must have had a knock, because I thought he did okay, and then some bits he didn't do okay. And we just need to get a bit quicker with the ball and play in their half and bring him back. Well, probably thought that he could do that, but again, we just sit back again, don't we? And we don't play in their half. And obviously, we'll talk about it in a second in more detail. But then Summerville scores, and you're thinking that is it. And I mean, is it Castellanos who was offside? Yeah. By like a hair's breadth. And it's like, if we would have lost last night, because I don't think there's any way we would have come back after 2-0. And I would have sacked Deitch last night because he's not good enough. Thankfully, we got the 2-1 win, but I think it papers over the cracks.
It's amazing the fine margins as well, isn't it? Because, 2-0, I thought it was game over and we were done, basically. But let's have a talk about these couple of minutes in a bit more detail. It starts with Forest up the other end of the pitch, and it comes with Nico Williams. He's knocked by Souček in the penalty area. Williams goes down. Dominguez then prods the ball at goal, and it comes off Souček and goes behind. VAR checks for a handball off Souček, says there's no penalty. Forest also don't get a corner here. And then, action quickly goes up the other end. It's a breakaway from West Ham. Castellanos to Walker-Peters. Walker-Peters comes inside, has a swing at it. It's blocked, and it drops for Summerville. He hits it very well, actually. He hits it hard and low through a crowd of bodies into the corner. At this point, West Ham are 2-0 up, and you think, this is it for Forest. There's no way we're coming back from it. But then VAR intervenes. They have a couple of minutes check. They adjudge that Castellanos was offside from the initial pass from Summerville, and the goal is chalked off. There is some contention about this because of how the pass is played out. Does it deflect off a Forest player? Summerville to Castellanos' pass. But I think at that point, Tom, I was just grateful that it was chalked off by whatever means necessary, because it gave Forest a reprieve. We were back at 1-0, and there was I felt anyway, a bit of a let-off, even though I can see why the decision was given. I was just relieved more than anything else. But do you think Forest could have had something at the other end prior to that West Ham breakaway?
To be honest, I've not seen it, and so because I didn't get back until like 1:30 this morning, and I haven't really watched any of the highlights, so can't really comment on that. But we got a fortuitous VAR decision, like you just mentioned, and Forest got a reprieve. And if that doesn't wake up a corpse of the players on the pitch, nothing would ever wake them up. And thankfully, we got our house in order and soon got an equaliser from a brilliant header from Dominguez, which I thought he was like man of the match. I really did think he was our best player, but it's not saying a lot because it was still a poor performance, but he was probably like the best half of a bad bunch. So, yeah, really thankful for VAR last night.
Yeah, and Dominguez was one of our better players on the night. And if anybody was going to score a goal, I think he deserved to. Yeah, and it was a corner whipped in by Elliot Anderson. It's. I think Dominguez tries to flick it on, to be honest, but he connects so well because he manages to not only loop it up, but loop it up over the keeper and a West Ham defender who's a couple of metres off the line into the back of the net. And suddenly from 2-0 up to 1-1 in the space of a few minutes, all the momentum had swung Forest's way. And I don't think we could have picked a better time to get that equaliser and really ram home the fact that the momentum had swung our way, because it gave us a lift, and you could see psychologically what it did to the West Ham players and what it did to our players. It just changed the tone of the evening completely. Yeah,
it was an absolutely brilliant header from Dominguez. Very reminiscent to that one what he scored against Brentford a few years ago at the Trent end. So yeah, it did kick us into life, and you could sense with the West Ham fans there's like a lot of apathy. And it's a bit of a weird atmosphere. We know they've got problems, etc. But even when the goals went in, it was like they cheered, then there was a silence, like somebody put the mute button on. And yeah, it was all the momentum swung in our favour last night after that equaliser from Dominguez.
Nuno got booked a bit later in the second half because he was unhappy with the decision which went in Forest's favour, and it was initially Jared Bowen who had the ball, one-on-one with Nico Williams. Williams slid in to block that shot, and then in the follow-up, Summerville went down on the edge of the area as Elliot Anderson was chasing him back. The referee didn't give anything. Nuno wasn't happy. And again, that's probably another example of where the momentum had swung in our favour. And as the second half wore on, Forest looked more comfortable, I should say. It was still obviously very tense because of the nature of the game and what was at stake, but Forest looked a bit more comfortable in the game, and at that point I think that's all we could ask for, because you didn't want to give West Ham any kind of hope or any inroads where possible. And it's, even though again they have got dangerous players, you think of Jared Bowen, he could win a game out of nothing and find something from somewhere. But I think the way we closed down the game in the last 20 minutes or so was actually quite good.
Yeah, it's made a difference, hasn't it? Once they obviously we got that equaliser, it was all us. But another thing what went in our favour is Nuno took Paquetá off, and Paquetá, I just think he is a really good player. And I don't think he's been playing in recent weeks, has he, because of injury. But taking him off, I thought it just gave us like a bit of belief that we might be able to get something, because you can hear like around the stadium that you can sense that the mood of they were tense and etc. And I think it was just that probably West Ham fans thought it was inevitable that we was going to nick something late on.
And let's talk about the big moment from Forest's point of view, because again there seems to be contention around this, and it starts with a free kick which was won by Nico Williams. Pablo, I think it was, West Ham player, trod on him. Free kick's given to the left-hand side of the penalty area. Elliot Anderson swings it in towards the far post. Souček heads it away, but as the ball has come in, Areola's come charging out of goal to try and punch, but all he does is connect with Morgan Gibbs-White's face. It goes to a VAR check, takes a couple of minutes again, and then the penalty is given by referee Tony Harrington. When you look at the replays, you can see why it's been given. I know we've got our Forest biases, but Areola comes out, he's nowhere near the ball, virtually punches Gibbs-White in the face, and it makes me think of the incident last season with with Andre Onana of Manchester United, when he came out, clattered a Wolves player in the face, nothing was given, and there was a lot of backlash about that decision. And I wonder if this one was given off the back of that and that precedent that was set then, because if you look at it in plain terms, Areola comes out, is miles away from the ball, collides with Gibbs-White. It's got to be a penalty, hasn't it?
Yeah, if you look at it like that, it is a penalty. But because we was at the other end of the ground, and obviously we're in a different postcode to the pitch, so you kind of like thinking, it is just like a clash of like players. But then when you can see why they've given it. But having said that, there's some decisions what have happened in the past what are not given. So I can see West Ham fans, their grievance with it, but thankfully for us, a VAR goal goes our way.
Yeah, and it was 89 minutes when the penalty was taken. Morgan Gibbs-White steps up, slots it straight down the middle. Areola dives to his right, but he can't get there. And Gibbs-White puts the ball in the space that Areola's left. 2-1 to Forest. Morgan converts under pressure. And at that point, West Ham fans are heading for the exits. I mean, plenty had already left by that point. It seems there were swathes of white seats around the London Stadium.
And there was plenty what didn't even bother last night because of obviously the situation they're in.
Yeah. So everything at that point was pointing towards a Forest victory. The late goal, the stuffing well and truly knocked out of West Ham. At that point, Sean Dyche was just trying to calm the players down and make sure that we got the job done, which we did in the end. We ran down the clock pretty well. Bakwa came off and he was replaced by Morato. I think Dyche was borrowing that one from the manager in the opposite dugout. Morato coming on to see a game out, 3 centre-backs on the pitch. And at that point, Forest didn't have too many issues getting through the last couple of minutes of injury time, all 7 minutes of it, which of course always seems to be the way when you've got a lead to defend, you get a lot of injury time. But in the end, Forest got the job done, a 2-1 victory, all 3 points for Sean Dyche's men, and that gap between them and West Ham now 7 points. And that feels like a massive moment in Forest's season.
The 1865 Match Report.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Before we talk about it a little bit more, we're going to get some reaction now from the opposition. And we're going to go over to James Jones from the We Are West Ham podcast.
Hello, guys. I've had some time to think about this because I need to calm down after that. And yeah, I think you guys can feel very, very fortunate to have come away with all 3 points tonight. And I don't think you disagree with me. We deserve to be in the position we're in, right? But, you know, you have a game like that tonight, a huge game of football between two sides fighting for their lives down the bottom of the Premier League where there's a lot of money at stake, and you put a referee like that in charge. And it's ruined it for me. It's completely ruined what could have been a really good game of football, a competitive game of football. I think either side probably did enough to win the game. And in the end, VAR and the referee decided that they were going to decide who was going to win the game. And I don't normally point to refereeing decisions as a reason why a team would win or lose. You know, normally I'm quite fair. But tonight, quite frankly, was a disgrace from the referee and VAR. The disallowed goal at 2-0, the laws state that if a player an opposing player deliberately plays the ball to an opposing player who is in offside position, the referee should wave play on. If Milenkovic hasn't deliberately played the ball by trying to stop the ball, and inadvertently touched the ball, then I don't know how anyone is. That means that anyone that touches the ball hasn't deliberately touched the ball. Milinkovic has deliberately touched the ball, therefore Tati Castellanos cannot be offside as per the rules of the game. Maybe I'm clutching there. A lot of people will see it differently. But regardless of that, our heads drop because, 1 minute we think we're 2-0 up. The referee and VAR find every reason under the sun to try and disallow it. They find a reason, rightly or wrongly, they find it. And then you guys go down the other end 4 or 5 minutes later and get an equaliser. Then I think this is after the equaliser, maybe just before. Summerville was hacked down on the edge of your area. Referee waves play on. How on earth that is not a free kick, I don't know. And then for the rest of the second half, it was just all West Ham players had to do was just look at the ball, and the referee was like, "No, that's a Forest free kick." And then the penalty. Well, I mean, do you guys even know what it was given for? Because I don't. There was no appeal from anyone. Again, it was a clear example of VAR and the referees trying to decide the outcome of a game as opposed to allowing the players to decide the outcome of a game. On the face of it, on the basis of the performances of the two teams, I think a draw probably would have been a fair result. I don't think we did enough to really win the game. I don't think Forest did enough to win the game. So I think a 1-1 draw probably would have been fair. Barring the contentious offside decision when we were in 2-0 up. But the decision to give that penalty, at the end of the day, Areola has every right to go for that ball. No one is getting that ball. Souček clears the ball. So the Forest player isn't getting there. Areola's not getting there. Souček clears it. And then about five days later, they go, oh, hang on, maybe there was a foul there. Should we have a little look? It baffles me. The modern game's gone. The game's gone. And a decision like that has probably cost West Ham its Premier League status, and cost the club millions of pounds. Let's have it right. That decision alone isn't the reason why we're going down, because we've been terrible up to this point, and we deserve to be in the bottom three. 100% deserve to be in the bottom three. But when you've got a chance to go 1 point, go from 4 points to 1 point behind the team above you in the league, and then suddenly it's game on for the rest of the season. There's 18 games left, or whatever, how many games left. There's almost half a season left. It's a fight. It's a battle. Maybe we can get a couple more players in the transfer window and really find our way out of there. Maybe Forest and West Ham can suck Leeds back into it, put a little bit of pressure on Leeds. Make it a 3-horse race rather than a 2-horse race, and now it's just a no-horse race. West Ham are gone, and it's all because of that penalty decision at the end of that game. And you guys can feel very, very fortunate that you won that game. Fair play, you got the 3 points, and if I was a Forest fan, or if that happened to us and I was a West Ham fan, I'd feel very fortunate as well. But equally, I'd be absolutely buzzing out of it. I'd be like, yeah, lovely, take that. But when you lose in the last minute to a penalty like that, when no one in the ground came for it, called for it, not even the Forest players look absolutely, they look shocked that they got given a penalty. That's how mental it was. I really don't know. But anyway, congratulations. All I know is that Nuno shouldn't be sacked. I think he's a good manager, and if we do go down, he's probably the best manager we can have in charge to get us back up again at the first time of asking. But even then, that's a tough ask, isn't it? That Championship's such a difficult league. But I like Nuno. I think he's a good manager. He's done some mad, excuse my French. So, sad day for football. Wish you all the best for the rest of the season. But if you could lose some games, that would be ideal. Cheers, guys.
Thanks to James for providing the opposition view there. And he's obviously unhappy with some of the refereeing decisions on the night. Tom, I have some sympathy because we've been on the receiving end of some stinkers since we've been back in the Premier League. But what's your reaction to James's thoughts there on how things played out?
One thing I definitely agree with is that, yes, we will lose some more games this season because of who our manager is and how he plays football. So I agree with him on that one. With the penalty, you can see why it was given, but sometimes they're not given. So it's one of those, it's who the referee is in the opinion of him, and also VAR. So, like I say, we've been on the end of some stinkers. So sometimes they do equal themselves out, don't they?
They do, and I think on the balance of play last night, Forest just about edged it in terms of chances created and the quality that we had on show. And yes, we've been helped out there by the referee and VAR, but I can see why all of those decisions were given. I know it's a funny one because you always come back to the argument, well, if that was given against us, I'd be furious. So you take it when those decisions come along. But I think on the balance of play, Forest just about edged it. And while I do have sympathy for West Ham, the refereeing decisions are not the reason that they're going to be going down this season if they do. And James did allude to that as well in his piece. There's more going on at the club and more issues at play than a couple of refereeing calls. But yeah, let's just got a couple of minutes left, Tom. Let's just reflect on the significance of this win. It moves Forest 7 points clear of the relegation zone. I've seen some talk that this win is more or less guaranteed safety because West Ham have got to win at least 3 games in hand on us and overcome our better goal difference. Where do you stand? Do you think that now sets us up for survival in the Premier League, or are you a bit more cautious with things still?
I'm a bit more cautious because there's still a lot of the season to still have. So we're not safe by any stretch, are we? So hopefully we can go on a bit of a run. I'm not saying we're going to beat Arsenal, but then we've got Wolves at home coming up, haven't we? And we've got Leeds away next month.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the criticisms of Sean Dyche's reign so far, in that we've picked up some really good wins. You think of Liverpool and Spurs, but we haven't been able to put together a consistent run in the league where it's a couple of wins, couple of draws maybe in a run together. And that kind of run just lifts you even further away from danger and gets you even more points on the board in a quick space of time. It's been quite stop-start, particularly in the league so far. And yeah, it's been frustrating at times, but at the very least, Forest got the job done at West Ham and have moved themselves into a much safer position than they would have been had the result gone the other way.
One thing I will say about the wins, what you've just mentioned, is that with the pressure on the club at the moment in terms of where we are in our position and everything, to still get the job done at the likes of Wolves away, West Ham away, Leeds at home, there's still pressure to get the job done, and we did that. So I will give the teams a bit of positivity on that stretch, but we got to try and get on a bit of a run now and start getting consistent performances and consistency in terms of results, and hopefully get to the 35-point mark quickly as possible.
And hopefully this win at West Ham takes a bit of the pressure off Sean Dyche and the team and allows them that space to now put a bit of a run together and kick on and hopefully move even further away from the relegation zone. We'll leave it there. That's the end of this 1865 match report. My thanks to Tom for joining me, and also to James for giving us a opposition view on events. We will be back with you later in the week with our match report after the Wrexham FA Cup game, so do join us for that one. But for now, thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon.
You've been listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and leave us a review. It helps other listeners find our content.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.